You did awesome in the movie.
Oh, can we do the podcast?
Yes. Right
Okay.
here.
Talk Time with Reid Moriarty.
Hi,
Hi.
Greg. I'm
Hi.
here to interview you.
Well, thank you, Reid.
So, how was America's musical journey, Greg?
Well, I loved making this film. I thought it was the most enjoyable film that I've ever made.
Of course, thank you very much. And now I have some questions to ask you. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I started making movies when I was 13, and I never thought that it was going to be a career. So I thought I was going to be first a baseball player.
All right.
And then I thought I was going to be a physicist.
Okay.
And then finally my first movie made some money, so I became a filmmaker.
All right. Who were some of your childhood heroes?
Stanley Kubrick and probably John Ford and Howard Hawks. They're the film directors.
All right. How hard was it to make the early surf films when you were 13?
It was hard because I didn't know what to do. So I had to learn from books and by watching other films and, trying to study really hard and experimenting. And so it was fun and hard at the same time.
They didn't have waterproof cameras.
They didn't have GoPros. So I had to build a water camera that would go out and it was giant. And it kept leaking.
All right. And how do you pick music for your films, Greg?
I work with our team who helps me suggesting various songs and pieces of music, and then we try them against the picture, and then finally to decide on the balance of songs versus score and instrumentals.
All right. Is there a commercial film you wish you had a hand in making?
Yes, 2001, Space Odyssey.
All right. So, of all the movies you've made, which was the hardest to shoot?
Probably Everest, because we had to build so many different cameras, and cameras that would work in the cold and cameras that were lighter so that they could be carried to the top of Mount Everest. So that took a lot of time. It took over 4 years to make that film.
All right. And Greg, where do you keep your 2 Academy Awards?
Well, I just got nominations. I didn't get an Academy Award, but I keep those plaques at our office.
All right. So, how are surfing and filmmaking alike for you?
I think both are kind of creative and spontaneous activities. You always, with filmmaking, you have to be just like a surfer, continually adapting to what the conditions are. And so I think actually surfing helped me an awful lot in my filmmaking.
All right. So who's a director you admire and why, Greg?
I think my most favorite director was Stanley Kubrick, and it's because that his visual interpretation was so unusual and creative and different with every film.
All right, so Greg, I'm a full screen and a widescreen fan. If there were no IMAX, would you prefer full screen or widescreen?
Well, I think maybe widescreen.
Of course. And why?
Because it has a chance to wrap around you and engage you a little bit more.
All right. So, can you explain one of the new techniques you developed when IMAX was brand new, Greg?
We built a very lightweight camera to use on a Steadicam. Then this isn't the camera that we used on Everest. This is another camera. We also built a camera that would go slow motion, which was almost impossible to build.
So, what advice do you give a young filmmaker starting out, Greg?
I think the main goal is to never give up. Never say no. Basically, just keep going at it.
All right. So, Greg, can you tell me a funny story about collaborating with a superstar?
Probably the funniest story was
Yes.
was working with Meryl Streep in New York City once. We had only a half an hour to do our narration, and so we got her in and out. Barbara was there with me, and we briefed her, and she just did an A+ job.
So, we gotta go. The last question is, what's the story you have yet to tell on the screen?
It's one that we're working on right now, which is all about creativity and imagination.
Thank you, Greg.
Talk Time with Reid Moriarty.